Hey guys, Desolator Magic here, and if you're wondering why the video looks a little bit different potentially and has different settings and won't go to HD, it's because I had to upload it at work because my home internet is completely knocked out, and I already know that it's because of the cabling in the walls at my apartment, which is just gonna be awesome to fix. I'm totally looking forward to that. Actually, may have misspoke there. If it was up to me to fix it, it would have already been fixed. It's up to them to fix it, which is the scary part. So yes, I had to make this upload in a reasonable time on a 1 megabit upload. I'm fairly certain I could drive it to YouTube servers in person faster than this. Anyway, this is a super short video about summoning sickness because people tend to screw it up. If you make a mistake about summoning sickness and don't understand the rules and then just take a guess because you're too lazy to call a judge, well, you might have just shot yourself in the foot and missed an opportunity to swing, or obviously missed an opportunity to prevent your opponent from swinging. Now, I should start by saying summoning sickness, the term, is actually not an official Wizards term, or not an official, like, Magic the Gathering term in their actual rulebook. The actual rule itself is basically just a description of how it works. And I love how people complained about me using the term fizzle and then go on to use summoning sickness every single time they play Magic the Gathering. If you're going to complain, at least do it consistently like I do. Now, as far as summoning sickness goes, everybody knows you drop in a creature, and if it doesn't have haste, it can't attack on the first turn that it came out. That is not remotely the rule, though. 99% of the time, though, that's all that you have to worry about. But then there's a little creation of mine, at least, called side-switching sickness, where if somebody somehow got your creature onto their side of the battlefield without granting it haste, it has side-switching sickness. And hey, summoning sickness is a made-up term anyway, so I'm totally, trademarking that. Well, this may come as a shock to you, but there's not actually something called side-switching sickness. It's just the same rule. So a lot of people know that, if somehow you take ownership of something or steal it, whatever, doesn't have haste, you can't swing with it, but not everybody. I'd say the majority of people actually don't know that. I've had to remind a lot of people of that. So you might be thinking, well, what about this scenario? What about that scenario? Oh, I heard that it has summoning sickness under these circumstances. What about this? Well, instead of just memorizing every condition, you should probably just learn the actual rule, because then it's a lot simpler, because then you can, make your own rulings in any circumstance. Are you ready for this? Because this is, shockingly not complicated. According to the web, the best definition of it is a creature cannot attack or use activated abilities with the tap or untap symbol in it, which even I didn't know that until I just read it, if it has not been continuously controlled by a player since the beginning of that player's most recent turn. Now, the way that's phrased is a little bit weird. But hey, if you want to talk about weird, look up the comprehensive rules that Wizards releases. Those are fun. That's a good read if you're, wanting to go to sleep or something. Oh my god, I should do an audiobook of the comprehensive rules. That'd be freaking awesome. I would read it really dramatically. In fact, okay, here's what the glossary says about the term summoning sickness, which, by the way, all of this has a twist ending at the end. Summoning sickness rule. Informal term for a player's inability to attack with a creature or to activate its abilities that include the tap symbol or the untap symbol, unless the creature has been under that player's control since the beginning of that player's most recent turn. See also Rule 302.6 and the haste mechanic. Now, both of those, I just don't like the way they're phrased because it's easy to read past it quickly and then get a wrong interpretation. It sounds like you have to control it for, some part of your last turn. If you read it carefully, though, it says the beginning of that player's most recent turn. In other words, did you control it since the absolute start of your turn? So, in effect, that basically means the end step of the last opponent before you. I mean, the last phase to occur before the beginning of your turn is their end step. I can see why they phrased it that way from a logical standpoint, so that if they wanted to add some kind of weird phase in between the turns with a new mechanic, they totally could. God, would that be fun. So when it comes to, hey, under this circumstances and this, and I cloned it, then he stole it, then I stole it back, then it was bestowed, then it jumped off the creature. Wouldn't that be a fun scenario? Well, it's simple. Just ask yourself, have you controlled that creature? Were you its controller? Uninterrupted, it was never stolen. since the beginning of your turn. So since the very last turn that occurred, their end step. If at the beginning of your turn, you already had control of it at that point, it doesn't have Summoning Sickness. Now, I should probably cover this. If it has haste, you can also use like a tap ability. It's not just a combat mechanic. Haste basically just means it doesn't suffer from Summoning Sickness. So if you look at some of the cards that like come out with haste and then have a tap ability, you can immediately use that tap ability the second that it hits the battlefield. Okay, it can't respond to its own summoning, so that's not a good way to phrase it, but you get it. Now, there's one more thing that I've purposely omitted up to this point for, confusion reasons, because now you pretty much got it. This applies to any permanent. For example, you probably remember Awaken from Battle for Zendikar, considering at this point it's actually still legal. There was, Awaken 3. It means put 3 1/1 counters on a target land that you control. It becomes a elemental creature with haste, a 0/0 elemental creature, of course, and it's still land. Now, a lot of people have said, why does it need haste? Simple, because your land has Summoning Sickness. It's not even a creature, but lands can't attack on the turn that they came out. And yeah, they can't attack because they're also not creatures and don't have a power and toughness. But if they, by some weird magic, like Awaken, became creatures, they wouldn't normally be able to attack. So that's why every single instance of Awaken that I've ever seen says the creature gains haste. So you drop in a land, awaken it, and then you can swing with it right away. Now, there have been like Planeswalker abilities, there have been just a lot of like Nissa abilities and a lot of sorceries and instants where they turn a land into like an elemental or something like that. A lot of times it says until end of turn it gains haste. Some of the time it doesn't say it gains haste though, whether it's permanent or not. And that means that if you drop the land that turn, it cannot attack. And I have caught people on that. I think even like Origins had a card that did that, and I said, hey, that land just came in this turn. You probably should have, turned a different land into a creature because it doesn't say it has haste, and the land itself has Summoning Sickness. And then to that, they always reply, Judge. But shortly after that, we have it all settled, and they don't make that mistake twice. Oh, and yes, I did drive to my shop at like midnight, save the Summoning Sickness rules as a PDF, drive all the way back home, and then recorded this. Now, as for the twist ending that I promised, the Summoning Sickness rule in the comprehensive rules is listed under Summoning Sickness, and then the first phrase is it's an informal term. It's on par with Fizzle. It was completely user made up, right? The players just made it up, and now it's become so ubiquitous that they had to make a rule on it, right? Wrong. If you look at certain cards from Mirage and Urza's Legacy, which totally would be in this video if I had internet, they actually used the phrase Summoning Sickness on the card. So it's an informal term that's just kind of used by the players and whatever. It's not a formal term that they printed directly on a card themselves and made up themselves. So I get it. Because they don't like nicknames, they don't like people having to look up stuff, they assigned it a nickname that they'd have to look up. It's called haste. Well, crap. Okay, maybe I don't get it, but basically, they got rid of that text and the oracle text, as they call it, which is the effective text that would be on the card if they were to print it ideally. That is no longer the term. They would replace the phrase unaffected by Summoning Sickness with just the keyword haste. So way back in the day, Wizards actually created the term Summoning Sickness themselves and then phased it out. And just like the name Fat Packs, nobody stopped using it. Seriously, it's been like 20 years and nobody stopped saying Summoning Sickness? I will admit, though, that it is a deeply inaccurate term. In fact, the term summon was phased out. Come on. It's more like permanent control checking because it's any permanent and it just checks if you had control of it since the beginning of your turn. But Summoning Sickness sounds cooler, and it's more accurate in most cases where this would actually come up, like, summoning a creature. Or casting a creature, I should say. I just said you're not summoning a creature. They phased out that term decades ago. Well, anyway, I think that the term Summoning Sickness is going to remain, as they call it, a colloquial expression. So I hope when you pick up your next Fat Pack, it doesn't give you Summoning Sickness. And I'll see you guys next video.